everyone and welcome to my craft room. I'm Leo from inkymemories.co.uk, an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator based in South Wales, and today on this workshop Wednesday we are going to be using the Playing with Patterns bundles, the Pattern Play stamp set and Playful Alphabet dies, to make a really fun gift for any teens or tweens in your life. And it could actually be a project that you either make with a teen or a tween, and they can then use it as a gift to one of their friends, for example. So let us get started. This is a workshop Wednesday, so we are going to be doing all of the cutting and scoring and everything ourselves. So the first thing I'm going to do is to cut some card bases. So I'll bring in my trimmer here, and I have a sheet here of 12 by 12 Whisper White cardstock. Now the reason I use this is because the envelopes that we're using today are these mini 3" by 3" envelopes, and using 12 by 12 cardstock makes it really easy to cut these to size without having to really think about it too much. So what I'm going to do first of all with my 12 by 12 sheet of card, I'm going to pop this in. I'm going to move it to the 3" marker on my trimmer here. Pop that down. I'm going to score, so I'm using the pale grey blade here. I'm going to run that up and down a couple of times to pop in a score line. I'm going to take my cardstock out and rotate it and put it back in again at the 3" mark. Make sure that's lined up nicely, so make sure you've got your cardstock butted right up to the top of your trimmer guideline up here, and then it's on the 3" line. And again, using the pale grey blade, I'm just going to pop another score line into there, and then I'm going to move my cardstock to the 6" line, and again make sure it's butted up nice and firmly across the top, and run my blade through the middle. So that gives us then two pieces that are scored down the middle, and then I'm just going to cut these each at 3 inches. So from this one sheet of 12 by 12 cardstock, you should end up with 8 card bases looking like this. So there are our 8 card bases all cut and scored and ready to go. So if you don't want to work in inches, if you would prefer to do this in centimetres, these are 7.6 centimetres by 15.2 centimetres, and they are scored at 7.6 up the middle. So some of the other products that we're going to be using today come from the Artistry Blooms suite. So I'm using this beautiful designer series paper here. Now this is currently, as of recording and posting this video, this is on sale in the designer series paper sale. So this pack is 15% off currently, along with a whole host of other designer series paper from Stampin' Up. I'll pop a card up here for you to a video that I did recently where I flicked through quite a few of the packs of DSP, so you can see these sheets in more detail. But what I need from this, I need a range of different colours and designs, and I'm going to cut them at 7 centimetres by 2 centimetres, and I need 3 of that size in each of the designs that I want to use. So I'm going to grab one of these sheets, so it has this gorgeous sort of paint crackled ombre on one side and then these beautiful brush strokes on the other. I'm going to grab, there's another one, there we go, this one here. So again, we've got another sort of ombre design on this side, and then this beautiful pattern on this side. And you just want to grab a couple of sheets that sort of speak to you, whichever colours you feel that you want to use for the project that you are making and the person that you're going to be ultimately gifting this to. Let's see. I think for the last one, I'm going to grab this. So we have some sort of little dot and line patterns on this side, and then another sort of beautiful blue ombre on this side. So I've got 4 sheets here, and I'm going to cut 2 sets of the pieces that I need from each sheet and then use the reverse side. So I end up with 8 different designs basically. So if I take my first sheet, all I will do first of all is cut my piece to 7 centimeters. So I've gone back to metric for you now. If you are wanting to carry on in imperial, that would be 2 3/4 inches. So pop that at 7. Again, make sure your paper is butted up right against the edge up here. So you run your trimmer blade right through that. And then I want to cut 6 pieces of this at 2 centimeters. So I'm just going to run this through a bunch of times until I have 6 of these little strips. Okay, so that's all of the DSP cut for the front of our card. So we have all of our little stacks of strips here. Oh, do we have 6? There we go. All ready to go. So the next thing I'm going to do is cut some coloured cardstock in the coordinating colours with this designer series paper. Now there are a lot of colours that go with this, so just to go through them, we have Bermuda Bay, Calypso Coral, Coastal Cabana, Daffodil Delight, Garden Green, Gorgeous Grape, Granny Apple Green, Magenta Madness, Mango Melody, Milan Mambo, Night of Navy and Whisper White. And what I've done is select 8 of those colours from that list that I'm going to use as sort of highlight colours and accent colours on my projects. So I have pulled out some cardstock in all of those colours, which you can see here. So just large scraps that I've got. We don't need a huge amount of this. And all I'm going to do is cut some strips of this as well. So exactly the same. I want a piece that is 2 centimeters wide and 7 centimeters long. So again, I'm just going to cut this from each of my pieces of cardstock. And there are our cardstock pieces all cut and ready to go in 8 of the colours that coordinate with the designer series paper. So the last little bit of cutting that we're going to be doing then is some black cardstock, and this piece we need it to be 11 centimeters by 11.5 centimeters. So I'm just going to cut this on here. So again, making sure my cardstock is butted up right to the top of my trimmer. Pull this to the 11 centimeter mark, pop your guide in place and then run your trimmer blade straight through. Spin that around then, and we need this to be 11.5 centimeters. So I'm just going to pull that to the 11.5. Make sure it is nice and firmly up against the edge, so I'm getting nice straight cuts, and then pull the trimmer blade through. And it's definitely worthwhile making sure that every now and again you do change out your trimmer blade. If you start to notice that the edge of your cardstock is fraying, sort of not getting clean cuts anymore, that is the time at which you need to change it. So that's all the cutting that we're going to be doing for now. That was quite a lot, I know, but it's all worthwhile. So now that we have all of our base pieces cut and ready to go, it's time to do a little bit of die cutting first of all. So I'm going to move out of the way some of these pieces. I'm just going to pop my card bases and DSP and my little cardstock strips just to one side. We're going to be using our black piece of cardstock, and what I'm going to be using today is one of these foam adhesive sheets. This is going to make the project really easy to put together once we have all of our pieces assembled. So I'm going to grab one of those pads out. And you may notice here that my piece of cardstock and my foam sheet are the same size. That is intentional. So all I'm going to do is just peel off one side of the sort of backing paper on my adhesive sheet. Make sure that I have my cardstock the right way around. And then adhere the cardstock to the foam sheet as closely as I can to the edges. So take your time with this, line it up carefully, because ideally you don't want to have any of the adhesive poking out around the edge when this is going through your die cutting machine, which is what we're going to be doing. There we go. So I now have my foam sheet adhered to my piece of black cardstock. And we are going to be die cutting through both layers of this. I have tested this, it does work. You do have to give it a little bit of encouragement. It is a little bit scary the first time you do it, but it does work, I promise. So let me pull in our dies, which I have here. So these are the Playful Alphabet dies. So the Playing with Patterns bundle can be found, well, the entire suite in fact can be found on pages 100 to 102 in your annual catalogue. The dies and the stamp set come together as a bundle, and there is a whole host of other products in that suite that are utterly gorgeous and I've used multiple times already on the channel, but I would highly recommend them. It is a really nice suite to get started, very simple to use as well. So what I'm going to be doing with the die cuts is something a little bit different than normal. I'm going to be making some words to go on the front of my cards. Now, like I said, this project is aimed towards the sort of teens or tweens in your life. So I have gone for some text speak type words. So things like lol and OMG and similar kind of phrases to that. And I have here a little dish to one side that I'm going to be popping my die cuts into as they come off the machine so that I don't lose them. So let me pop in my stamping cut and emboss, and we shall start die cutting. So for today's die cutting we need the base plate, so that's plate 1. We also need the thin die adapter, so that's plate 2. And then we need our 2 clear cutting plates, which are plate 3. So first of all, pop down 1, 2 and 1 of the 3s. Grab your cardstock with the foam adhesive underneath it and pop that on as well, and then start assembling your words. And I found this was easiest to do in sort of lines across, so build 2 words if you have enough letters to do so, die cut them and then go on and build the next one. So we'll start off doing the easy ones. Let's do lol and OMG. And you can get these dies quite close together, just make sure they're not overlapping, because that will ruin your dies and you definitely don't want to do that. So L, O, and try and find the other L on here. I know there are 2 because I've done this already. There it is. Okay. I'm going to try and arrange these slightly so that I am getting the most out of my piece of cardstock. You should be able to get all of the letters that you need for all 8 of your cards from this one piece of cardstock. So O, M, and G. So I'm going to run that one through. So pop your second clear plate, number 3, over the top. And before you feed it in, just have a quick look, make sure none of those letters have moved or sort of overlapped each other. Feed it into the roller and then start cranking it through. Now, as I said, this does take a little bit of extra pushing to get it through. So just keep going, slowly winding the handle. There we go. And I'm going to go backwards this time to get it back out. Just to give it another squeeze through the roller. And that should be our first set of letters cut. So we can just double check this. If you hold those carefully in place and just look on the underside, you should be able to see the outline of all of your letters. If you have that, fantastic. If not, just roll it through again. Just give it another crank through back and forwards. And hopefully then you should get a good die cut. So here is the first one. So you have your cardstock, and then your foam pad, and then the backing paper. So I'm just going to pick all of these out and pop them into my little dish to one side so that I don't lose them. Here all of my letters cut out, and here is my foam sheet. Now we still have some space left around here, and I'm going to put this to one side because we are going to be coming back to this a little bit later in the project, so definitely don't throw that away. So now that we have all of our pieces put together, it is time to start making our little cards. So I'm going to bring back in all of these pieces that we have here. It's time to do a little bit of stamping. We can't do a project without any stamping at all. And we're going to stamp a little bit onto the bases of our cards, and of course, as I'm sure you all know by now if you've seen any of my videos, I don't like to have any naked envelopes. I like to also add a little bit of decoration to the front of my envelopes, so we'll be doing that at the same time. So I've pulled out 8 mini envelopes. I've got my 8 card bases here. And I'm going to bring back in the Pattern Play stamp set. And what I'm going to do is just stamp a couple of these sort of pieces in the background. Just some little accents to add a little bit of something extra to the background of our cards. And I have pulled out ink in the same colours as the cardstock that I did earlier. So just to bring these all in, here is the little rainbow that I have. So we've got Magenta Madness, Bermuda Bay, Calypso Coral, Mango Melody, Coastal Cabana, Flirty Flamingo, Gorgeous Grape, and Granny Apple Green. And we're going to do a little bit of stamping on each card in one colour. So let's grab a card base. I'm going to start off first of all with these little lined hearts, so the outline version, not the sort of full, let me show you what I mean, so the outlined one rather than the sort of full stamp. I'm going to grab in some Magenta Madness and some Gorgeous Grape, and I'm going to stamp some of these. So first of all, onto the background of my card. So we only want this obviously on the one side, the sort of front side, and your cards are going to be this way around. So bear that in mind when you're using directional stamps. So I'm just going to pop a couple of these just over my card base. They are predominantly going to be hidden by the DSP, but you will see a little bit of them poking around the edges. So just a few of these stamps just around, rotate them a bit, pop them in, there we go. like so. And then I'm going to do an envelope to match as well. So with this one, I'm just going to do a little line of these stamps across the bottom of my envelope. Just like so. I shall clean off my stamp. Just on my Simply Chamois. Close up the Magenta Madness ink. We are done with that one. And I'm going to do the same again using the Gorgeous Grape. So grabbing in one of my card bases, making sure I've got it the right way around. And again, just add in some of these stamps all over the sort of front part of your card. So you can rotate them, make them go off the edge. It just adds a little bit of extra something to the background of the card. Okay, I think I'm happy with that one. And then I'm also going to do an envelope to match that one. And this time I'm just going to pop one little cluster of the hearts down in the bottom left corner. And again, clean off my stamp. I'm going to do one more colour with the heart stamp. And that is going to be in Bermuda Bay. Now that we have all of our card bases and envelopes stamped, it is time to put everything together. So I'm going to do one card at a time. These are incredibly easy to put together because of the steps that we have done already. So I'm going to grab some of the DSP pieces that go with the base colour. So for this little one in Granny Apple Green, for example, I'm going to grab 3 of my little strips. And then for my next card, I'm going to flip those over and use those 3 strips instead. And I'm just going to adhere these with liquid glue. Nice and simple. I'm going to do the 2 outer ones first so that I get my spacing around the edge just right, and then pop the middle one into the centre. And because we're using liquid glue, we do have those few little seconds to wiggle the piece around and shimmy it into place if it isn't quite right the first time you pop that down. So there's our 2 outer edge pieces, and then I shall pop the middle one into the centre. And with this, you don't want to add too much liquid glue. If you do put too much on, you will find that it sort of squeezes out of the edges when you put it into place, and you end up with sticky patches on the front of your card, which you definitely don't want. Okay, so that is my Granny Apple Green piece. I'm going to grab some now for my Flirty Flamingo card. And what I'm trying to do is make sure that the pieces that I select from my DSP are not the pieces that would have been next to each other. So you get a good mix of the different sort of ombres and varieties of textures and colours when you're popping these together. So again, I'm just going to glue these pieces into place, starting with my outer edges so that I get a nice even border around the edge of those pieces. And the same with the one on this side. Wiggle that into place if it's not quite right. And then pop in the centerpiece. And then I'm going to repeat this for all of my card bases and pieces of designer series paper. So there are my card bases with all of their designer series paper added onto the front, and now it's time to add a little bit of ribbon. Now I've used the black and white baker's twine. This is a twisted twine, and this comes from the Playful Pets ribbon combo. Now the Playful Pets suite can be found in the annual catalogue on pages 40 to 42, and I thought with all of the colour going on, this would be a nice sort of neutral colour to go with them that would work with all of them. And I'm just going to tie a nice simple bow around the front of each of my cards. She says I want the bow to land over to the left hand side, so I'm literally just going to tie this onto here. So nothing too elaborate with this one, just a nice simple bow. You want it to be fairly small. Obviously these are quite small cards, so you don't want the bow to be too bulky or out of place on the front. Oh, that has not tied properly. Let's try that again. Tying bows has never been my forte, and doesn't matter how many times I try and do this on camera or off. Sometimes it goes really well, quite often it doesn't. Okay, this one looks a little bit better. So I always find when I'm pulling twine back through that it helps just to hold the loop, so the sort of knot in the middle as you are pulling it back. It just helps to stabilise it and stops the twine sort of untwisting itself when you're pulling it through. I'm going to grab my ribbon scissors and just snip the ends. And then I'm going to continue tying teeny tiny little bows over the front of the rest of my cards. So all 8 of my card bases now have their slightly neat little bows on the front, and it's time to put the finishing touches on. We're almost at the finish line. So I'm going to take my little strips of coloured cardstock that we cut earlier, and I'm going to punch them using the lovely Labels Pick a Punch, and I'm going to be using the squared off end on this. And literally all I'm going to do is feed these pieces in until they hit the bottom sort of shelf, if you like, into the punch, and literally just punch both ends of my cardstock with that design. And again, I'm going to repeat this for all of the pieces of cardstock that I have here. have punched out all of my little pieces of cardstock, and we're just going to literally assemble the fronts of our cards now. So for each one, just take your bone folder and burnish the score. Find its corresponding little card tab, and we're going to adhere these with dimensionals. Now what I want to do is make sure that I don't have dimensionals sat over the top of the twine. I want it to be top and bottom. So what I'm going to do for this is actually use some of the edge pieces that come on my dimensional sheet. So I've got a couple of sheets here. You can see all the big pieces have gone from the middle, but I have all of these edge pieces, and I'm going to be using those because they are slightly thinner. They're going to sit nicely along the edges of my cardstock. So I'm just going to snip them into smaller pieces. So just with an older pair of scissors, I don't use my good ribbon scissors for this kind of thing. And this is a great way of using up the edges of your dimensionals. And just because all of the sort of hexagonal pieces in the middle have gone, it doesn't mean that you need to throw the sheet away. You can absolutely continue using these pieces as well. So I'm just going to use these edge pieces just like this to make a sort of channel down the middle that the twine can then sit in, and my dimensionals are not sat over the twine, because that can make it sort of rock back and forth on the front of your project. So make sure your twine is nicely centered on your card. We're going to use this piece basically to anchor the twine onto the card fronts. Get that nicely lined up and pop it into place. And I'm going to do that again for all of the others. So just making sure that I pop one of these card pieces onto the front. It doesn't have to match. This Playing with Pattern Suite and the Artistry Blooms paper, there are so many colours and patterns in this. So you can really mix and match and make each card your own at this point. Have a think about how you want them to look, who they're going to, what they might appreciate, and have fun with it. Make it absolutely your own project. So I'm going to carry on popping these on to the front of each of my cards. So there are all of our bases done, and now it is time to pop on our words that we cut out earlier. So here I have my little tub of letters. And because we already have the foam sheets included with this, this is going to be really quick and easy to put together. So I'm just going to grab out all of the words and lay them onto my card fronts so that they are ready to go. And then I can actually just pop them all on in one go without having to hunt out each individual letter. So now that I have these all laid out over the fronts of my cards, I'm literally just going to peel the backing paper off the foam adhesive sheets exactly like you would with a dimensional, and pop my letters into place. Now I'm going to make this easier myself. I'm quite happy for these to be at a bit of a fun angle. They don't have to be all straight on the front. The reason I've laid them out first is just to make sure that I can get the spacing right, so I don't end up with them all squished at one end. But I'm happy for these to be at a bit of a jaunty angle. Just make it easier on yourself. If you want to line them up all perfectly straight on the front of the card, then absolutely do. This is your project. You do it how you wish. last little L on there. Okay. And the very last accent that I wanted to add to this was something else from the Artistry Blooms suite, which are these gorgeous adhesive backed sequins that come with the suite as well. So again, these are in a range of colours, and you can hopefully see they have this beautiful iridescence over the front of them. And I'm just going to scatter some of these sequins across the front of all of the cards, just to give them that little bit of extra bling and a little bit of sparkle. And as always, when I'm adding embellishments, I tend to do this in 3s or 5s, depending on how many you want to put on and the size of the project. Since these are sort of smaller cards, I'm going to stick with just 3s today, and I arrange them in a roughly triangular pattern over the front of the card. So there we go, our cards now have an appropriate scattering of bling over the front as well. And the last thing that I'm going to do, like I said, this is a gift. I would like to give these as gifts. So I'm going to pop them into a little box. So I have here the 3 1/8 inch by 3 1/8 inch or 7.9 centimeters acetate card boxes, which are perfectly sized for these mini cards that we have put together here. So I'm going to grab a couple of these out to make 2 mini gift boxes to pop our little cards into. And we're going to repeat a couple of the techniques that we have done on the fronts of the cards, just onto the gift box as well. So I'm going to bring back in my trimmer and some of the designer series paper that we've used. I just want to cut 2 strips of the designer series paper. And I'm going to be quite long, so I'm pulling out the arm on my trimmer today. So first of all, I want to cut a strip. Let me just make sure this is wide enough. It is, yes. So I want this strip to be 4 centimeters wide. So we'll do that part first of all. So pop this at the 4 centimeter mark. Pop my guide into place and run that straight through. And then I want this to be 24 centimeters long. So it is pretty much almost the full width of your 12 by 12 paper. Just make sure I've got that nicely up to the line there. There we go. So there's one. And I'm going to grab one of the other sheets as well. Let's grab this fun one. This makes me think of leopard print. I'm not quite sure why. Definitely isn't a leopard, but it sort of has that sort of reminiscence. So let's call it leopard print today. So again, I'm going to cut this at 4 centimeters wide and then 24 centimeters long. Okay, I'm going to cut myself 2 pieces of the coloured cardstock. Pull my trimmer back in. So I'm going to look at the colours that I've got in here and try and go with some coordinating versions. So I'm going to go with Coastal Gabbana with this piece, and I want this to be the same as we had before. So 2 centimeters by 7. So there's our 2, and there is the 7 for that piece. And for this one I'm going to use the Gorgeous Grape. It's one of my favourite colours. It's such a beautiful bright purple. I recently did a card using this as the card base. It was such a lovely colour to have. It's nice and bright without being too in your face. Just a really lovely colour. So that is all of the trimming that we need to do. We're going to do a little bit of punching again, just using the pick a punch once again, just to add the nice ends to our pieces of cardstock. So again, I'm just feeding the cardstock in until it hits the end and punching that. Just making sure that it is centered nicely across the surface of the punch, so you get the design nice and evenly on both sides of the cardstock. Okay, those are our cardstock pieces. Now I'm going to cut just a couple more letters from the piece of foam that we left from earlier. So here is my piece of foam that we used previously. So I just have a couple more things to punch or cut out of here. So I'm going to use the number 4. So this set of dies does also have numbers in here as well, which is really lovely. I'm going to grab the number 4, if I can peel it off, there we go, and the hashtag. Everyone loves the hashtag these days. And the letter U, if I can see it, there it is. And I'm going to run that through twice, because obviously we've got 2 of our little gift packs that we're putting together. So in exactly the same way that I did before, using the cut and emboss machine, I'm just going to run that through twice to grab those pieces. So with these gift boxes, these little acetate ones, you want to first of all bend them into shape, as they obviously come flat. So all I like to do with these is just bend them the opposite way to how they are when they arrive, and just pinch down those scores, fold in and pinch on all of the other score lines as well. This just makes it much easier to put the box together. At the end, if you do pinch all of these nicely. That's our 2 card boxes assembled and ready to go. I'm going to bring in my Stamping Seal Plus for this, for putting the paper around. So I'm going to start on one side, get it across the middle. What I like to do to help make this easy for myself is, again, just using my thumb and forefinger, just pinch the Designer Series paper at the point where it goes around the edge of the card box, and then the same with this side, just to get a fold in the paper. And then you can actually take it off and make sure you line it up, and then just sort of reinforce those folds slightly. Don't need to do this with a bone folder, it doesn't need to be that kind of crisp, but just taking it back off and folding it yourself along those lines where you've pinched the paper, just to help keep it in place for you when you wrap it around the box. And then that one as well. And then to seal this up, the way that I have been doing this, I find this the easiest. So on this side, I'm going to put adhesive on this end, just like that, and then I'm going to put adhesive on this end on the inside, and this way this holds the Designer Series paper closed at both ends, so you get a good seal around the box. So make sure you have the box the right way around so that you can still open the top and the bottom. Pop your Designer Series paper into place, which should be much easier now you've got those folds. Make sure it lines up, and then press that adhesive into place. So you've got your adhesive here and here, and it holds both ends of the DSP around the front of your box. And I'm going to repeat that then with the second box and my second piece of fake leopard print Designer Series paper. So again, just holding it in place and pinching where it's going to fold around the box. Okay, so that's our 2 boxes with designer series paper around the front. We shall then add on our, no, we won't. Obviously, we need to then put some twine on. So basically we are just mirroring the design that we have on our cards, but on the front of our boxes. So let us tie a bow on here. I've had practice now. This may go better. At what point do you become an expert in tying bows? How many do you need to tie in order to do this? I mean, I would like to point out I do tie my shoelaces. I managed to do that. I don't know why it's different when it's on a shoe than it is on the front of a card. Maybe because it needs to look neat on the front of a card and it doesn't really matter how your shoelaces look when they're tied. Okay, bow number 1. Just trim those ends slightly. And then I shall repeat that on the second box as well. Two little bows on the front of our boxes. Now it's time to add on our pieces. So I'm going to do exactly the same as I did on the card fronts, using the edge pieces of my dimensionals here. Great way of using up your dimensional scraps. But like I said, you know, you can absolutely use these on any project. Just because they're not in a hexagonal shape, they're not going to work any less well than the normal piece of dimensionals would. So make sure you do use up all of the pieces around the edges of the sheets. Get the most out of your supplies. So here is our piece in Coastal Cabana. Just make sure your twine again is nicely centered around your piece of designer series paper, and then your cardstock is nicely centered on the front, and then pop that into place. And then do this again for the second one. So with obviously Christmas coming up, that word that we don't like to talk about, but it is rapidly approaching at this point, these would make excellent mini gifts to give to people. So, you know, like I said earlier, whether you make them and gift them, or the teen or tween in your life makes them and gifts them to friends, they would be perfect little mini gifts to give for Christmas. Already wrapped as well, no further wrapping needed, or you could always pop it into a nice gift bag if you wanted to, sort of maintain the surprise a little bit longer. So I'm just going to grab out here my little letters that we cut out. So I've got 2 of each. I just need to push the middle of the hashtag out. So I'm just going to grab a pokey tool to do that. Okay, and then we shall continue with putting the words onto the fronts of our cards. So our little hashtag first of all. Sorry, onto the front of our card boxes. We've already made the cards. So there is our hashtag. The number 4. I love that this set of dies comes with both letters and numbers. The idea being that you can make any sentiment that you want for the front of your card or project. As we've shown today, we've got a whole bunch of different sentiments going on here. But this is a really lovely set for doing that. And like I said, a perfect sort of beginner suite as well. Okay, 2 card box fronts done. Let us add a little bit more bling over the front of these. You can never have too much. I love these sequins as well. They're so pretty with a sort of iridescence on the front of them. Okay, there's one there. And let's do some of these nice deeper pinky purpley ones. So now that we have the letters onto the front of our card boxes, it is time to fill them. So if I pop this back open, I'm just going to grab 4 of the cards. And the coordinating envelopes as well. Okay. When I'm putting card boxes together, I like to put cards on both sides with the envelopes in the middle, just so that you can see the pretty cards from both sides of the gift. And then I'm just going to literally pop these inside. Just make sure you tease everything in, so all of the ribbon and also the sort of pads with all of the letters on and everything. It does fit, you just have to sort of encourage it to go in. And then you may also just need to make sure the card goes beyond the sort of flap at the bottom of the box. So just manipulate those in. Using your bone folder can help with this as well. So if you pop this down the front of your cards and lift that flap up, and then you can push the cards down. And then close up your gift box. And there is your little gift of cards ready to go. And there's the other 4 all ready to go in there as well. So I hope you have enjoyed this project. Thank you so much for joining me today in my craft room. I know it's been a long one. I hope it has been worthwhile for you, and thank you for watching all the way to the end. If you have enjoyed this project, please do consider giving this video a thumbs up. Pop a like on there for me. Let me know that you've watched and enjoyed. Maybe pop a comment in the comments box below who you think you might gift this to if you give this project a go yourself, or perhaps you'd like to make a variation on it. Let me know what you're planning on doing with that. Consider also subscribing to my channel. I post videos twice a week with tips and tutorials on all things Stampin' Up and crafting, and I'm sure there's something else there that you are going to enjoy. So if you subscribe to the channel, you will get notifications every time I post a new video. All of the products that I have used today are available in my Stampin' Up store, and I'll pop a link in the description box below directly to that, so you can shop any of these products if you want to give this project a go for yourself. If you'd like a copy of our physical catalogues posted out to you and you're based in the UK and you don't currently have a Stampin' Up demonstrator, again, I'll pop a link in the description box below for you to request that directly through my website, and I'll get those into the post for you so that you can enjoy those with a nice cup of tea and maybe a biscuit or 2. And just a quick reminder, as of the time that I am posting this video, so from October 1st to October 31st, the designer series paper that I've used, the Artistry Blooms paper, is currently on sale in the DSP sale, so it's 15% off, and it's not the only paper that is included in that sale. Again, I'll pop a card up just now with a flick through of some of my favourite stacks of paper that are in the sale, but there are lots more in there again, and I'll pop the link directly to that in the description box for you, so you can check out all of the designs that are included in that. Thank you again for joining me today, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.